Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. And when I woke up this morning, I was thrilled to see sunshine. But, you know, I live in Southern California, and I saw, oh, my gosh, look at the sun. And I threw my clothes on, and I went outside. And, of course, I was about 4 layers short. It was so cold out there. It looked, but it fooled me. It's all about the context, huh? I am delighted to be here, even though it's been raining and raining and raining. And I'm especially glad to talk about this topic. I'd like to revisit this topic with you. And I hope talk about it in a contemporary spirit and an irreverent spirit, and most important of all, one that will be useful for you. Because to me, that is what is interesting about instructional design. It is how we make decisions. It is how we are useful to the people we serve, no matter whether we're talking about little ones or a university or petrochemical or finance or sanitation. So why I love instructional design and why I think we need it more than ever. So maybe it's not as obviously sexy as mobile, but frankly, we need it if we're ever going to take advantage of mobile or games or gamification or print. Yeah, I said it. Print. So, I believe that when we talk about instructional design, I don't want to talk about arrows and boxes and circles. I want to talk about them. I want to talk about their reaction to what we deliver to them, the systems we provide. So this is what we want, and frankly, this too. Would this be familiar over here? How many people have seen this before? Why is it so engaging? Shout out. Feedback. Prior to feedback, what happens? Action. Feedback. What else? Emotion. Conviviality. Sound, noise, and maybe money. Maybe. Probably less likely. And this. And this. This guy's happy. And this, too. Have any of you seen this? You open up a device, any device, and what's on the device? What do you think she's looking at? You think she's looking at ethics compliance training? What is she looking at? She's looking at a dog. She's looking at, even better than a dog, a puppy. She's looking at what? Mommy. Daddy. Who else? Herself. What else? What would a child be interested in looking at? She's looking at toys. She's looking at a device. Who knows? What we know is she's looking at something that matters to her, is relevant to her, that touches her. There's a lesson there for us, of course. Look at this data. This is from Clay Christensen, who's doing some really interesting work on education reform. Look what he says. Half of it. I don't know if that's true. All I know is that this is not where we are. We are not ready for this. This is what my online learning at the university looks like. How you liking that? Okay, I had 8 choices. And in other words, 8 topics around which I was non-compliant. And they sent me an email and said, he's laughing, it isn't funny. And they said that I had to get those compliance topics checked off. Of course, they didn't speak about it that way, but that's how I read it. Get them checked off or else. Or else they were cutting me off the email. Okay, so I picked one, and I picked one that I thought, okay, I give a hoot about that topic. Information security. I have some questions. I have some issues. I get student papers. We have social networks. I need to deal with issues of information security. How do I return papers? It's not like the old days where you threw a box of papers out your door. and then over the course of 2 weeks they would disappear because the students would pick them up. No more of that, right? That's over and done with. So this is what they give me. There are 8 objectives there. 3 of them have anything to do with me. The others are for IT people, administrators, department secretaries, department chairs. 3 bullets of use to me. None of them written in a way that has anything to do with my concerns. None of them written in a way that has anything to do with my concerns. And at the bottom, can you see this? Can anyone read that to the audience? Page 3 of 72. How do you think I felt? How would you feel? Would you feel better if it was page 3 of 54? Not so much. Why? Because it wasn't made to help me do something I needed to do. Right? I am not saying, yuck, on you information security. I'm telling you, give me the bun mose, the key aspect of information security that I can use to help my students and myself. Oh, that is so hard. Or this, are you liking it? Is it a nice modern color, do you think? What's wrong with this picture? She says 70s, okay. I guess the color is a little old. But what else is wrong with this? Too much text. Too much text. And the big question that I looked at when I saw this was, where do I look? Where? And then how about this piece? Look at this. It's called the immune system, and the topic is immunity. Huh? About what? Do what? Solve what? Create what? Fix what? Who cares? Wonderful use of technology. But the issue isn't just technology. I'm not here to talk about just instructional design for technology, although I am particularly in love with that topic. But I want to talk about instructional design to help us make better decisions and use the rich arrows that are in our quiver. Right? We have so many great choices. How do we make the decisions? Look at this. How about this? Yummy. And the truth is, this in itself is not evil, but it does speak. It does tell a bit of a tale, right? It is a little on the one-way side. It is a little unengaging. Could it be engaging? Of course it could be. I have to admit it, I love the classroom. The classroom is a gift. It is a gift. It is an investment. But it's not one we can afford for everything, all the time, every student. Notice the attractive and contemporary technology display. Now, you look at that. Is it only my university that has these lying around? Part of the problem isn't that we're using them. It's that we don't know what to do with them. Execution and sustainability remains a big problem. This is a photograph taken on my back porch. This is my nephew Daniel. He is a student at an undisclosed location. And one summer he was staying with us. And because he was staying with us, and he doesn't go to school in San Diego, he was taking online courses to move him along. And so, of course, every time he would start working on his online courses, I'd be climbing all over him to see his online courses. And I was asking him questions. And this is what he said to me. Nobody likes it much. He's driving an arrow into my heart. Nobody likes the online classes. Nobody likes it much. It's just a bunch of reading online. In other words, taking it from one modality and slapping it into the other modality. What a good idea. And this is my fave. He says, it is okay for unimportant classes. Daniel is an accounting major. And he finished his degree, and he is now in graduate school in accounting. It's all good. His parents are both professors, right? You can only imagine their reaction to this. The online classes that he was taking were not very good. And while I said to him, so all your campus classes, all your F2F, face-to-face classes, they're all good? He said, no, but the professors, I get to talk to, he had more tolerance for the face-to-face. He and his colleagues students had more tolerance for the face-to-face. Online, few seconds before they decided, I'm out of here. What would your people say about your courses online and face-to-face? How would they characterize your programs? What words would they whisper in my ear as an external? Have you asked? Have you asked? Don't you think it's worth doing? Would they say useful? Would they say vivid? Would they say engaging? Would they say, I love to talk to the people I met at the? Would they say, I've never met X, Y, and Z, and yet I often communicate with them? Would they say, I know where to go for? That's very different than what we would want people to have said 20 years ago about our learning programs. But that's what we want them to say today about usefulness, connections, resources, a way to contribute. It's different. Possibilities are different. This is the way it used to be. Now look at this. A course occurs, that would be what we do, and then a miracle occurs, that would be what we hope for, and then results occur, but we don't necessarily know if it happened or not. Not so good. I believe instructional design is an antidote for this. It's not the only one, but it is an antidote to make sure that we do the things ahead of time, to make sure that they had things before the course, to make sure that it is a course when it should be a course, and it is beyond a course and a system and an influence that wraps around them. And then that we're I'm forgetting the discussion of miracle because I have no wisdom to say about that. And that we're constantly measuring so we know how to fix. So this is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about basics. I want to talk about what I think is greatness. And I want to talk also about how instructional design can touch minds and hearts. Because I think we need to touch minds and hearts more today than we did 10 years ago or 15 or 20 or 25 years ago. Why? Why do we need to touch minds and hearts more now? Great. More competition for attention. Exactly. Why else? They get to choose. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 years ago, the enterprise, the university, all the systems, K-12, even kindergarten through 12, ruled supreme. Now that supremacy is challenged, right? Each of us individually has more agency to reach for what we want, when and where. The world is getting disintermediated. Expertise, experts, connections, peers, they're available for people to reach for via technology. So they get to choose. So we have to be better at our game. So if you're sitting there as a vendor or an internal, you are worth your salt because you get them. You get the worker in the workplace and can deliver to them in a way that is efficient and useful. Efficient and useful. Because if you don't, they reach beyond. Because they can. But if we keep doing what we've always done, because we always had that market, because we always had them, they have choices, So we need to touch minds and hearts. And I don't mean we need to touch it through dancing panda gifts, as darling as pandas are. I think we need to do it by delivering things to them that help them do the thing they want to do, the thing they need to do, the thing that we as an enterprise made clear was a priority for them to do. And so, basics. Instructional design defined. Walt Dick. That's what he said it was. You've probably seen this definition? Yes? Pretty good. Except today I would say even more. Applied anthropology, applied information technology, applied organizational behavior. But of course, inherently applied psychology. It is. I was a high school English teacher when I first started my career, and I loved it. I really did love it. But I had no clue what I was doing. Now you can say, what about your teacher training? And I would say, what about it? I had no clue. So I was teaching the Scarlet Letter, and to a high school group of high school seniors. I was probably 2.5, 3 years their senior. And what I would do was ask these very questions. What am I going to do with them tomorrow, right? And I'm a teacher, what am I going to teach? I had no clue about outcomes, how important it was to articulate them, how important it was to understand the nature of the outcomes, and how I could match strategies to those outcomes. I had no idea how to touch minds and hearts. I had no idea how to help them use each other. And I had no idea, most important of all, I had no idea deep down from the mind of a 16 or 17-year-old why they should really read that thing. It was a good read, but why? What would they talk about? What would they think about? How could they apply it to things ripped from the headlines? No clue. And that's because I didn't know about instructional design, because instructional designers would ask these questions. What would a great high school senior be able to say and do and compare and contrast? What would it motivate them to do? And of course, this is true with sales professionals and customer service reps and drivers and safety folks. What do they now know and do? Where are they making errors? Where are the flaws? How can we focus there? What about success? And then here, if you're going to come up with a system for solution, not just I'm an instructor, I go in a room and instruct, I ask questions about systems. I ask why, and then I derive systems based on causes and drivers. I worry about supervisors. Managers. In the case of the kids, parents. I look at the literature, I look at best practices, I think about theory. I don't think about it because I'm religious about it, right? That I'm a thisism or a thatism, or a thisist or a thatist. I actually think about theory the same way I think about technologies. Arrows in a quiver. Bring them to bear appropriately, right? Don't just love one because it's got pretty feathers. Theory. Example. The keynote yesterday, Nick Negroponte, he would say this is instructionism, up here, and this is constructivism, maybe a little time for cognitivism. I don't want to cast any of them out of the quiver. I just want to be conscious of the fact that there are things that we need to know behaviorally, like driving, where we need to have it in our deepest of memory, where it's easy, where we do it automaticity. We do it with automaticity. So that means we need to practice a ton of it. We don't want to be thinking about. I just bought a new car, a Mini, a British car, a little Mini. And it was really hard for me to switch from a Japanese because I didn't have it in automaticity. I had to think all the time, how do I start this thing? I had trouble getting the keys out of it all the time because I couldn't remember how to stop this thing. Right, we need some things in automaticity. So, it's pathetic, isn't it? Yeah, I know. Oh. But it's over now. It only lasted a few days, but it was bad while it lasted. But look at the strategies. Practice, practice, practice with KOR, knowledge of results, drills and skills and practice and clarity of expectations. We move to cognitivism, moving from do it to getting it. Folks, why must I decide? I want them to get it and I want them to do it. And if they're great consultants, I want them to find unspecified ways. So in my view, in our programs, there's opportunity for behaviorism, there's opportunity for cognitivism, there's opportunity for constructivism, and I'm going to do one more in a moment. So here we see behaviorism, Rosetta Stone, right? You want to learn a language? What do you have to do to learn the language? Repeat it. And then maybe what else do you have to do? Repeat it some more. It's called repeated practice over time, over place, right? Intense, excessive. Sure, that's how you learn a language. Very behaviorist, and very good, and very appropriate to the outcomes. This is actually a UK project. Caseworkers needed to learn how to identify child abuse and other kinds of situations and write reports that would get the right services to the right people. This was built by Suddenly Smart, and you can take a look at it online. And so what they did is they put you in the role of a caseworker. They give you obvious cases all the way up to not obvious cases of child abuse. And you observe the videos with a checklist of what to watch for. So first you get to watch experts do it using the checklist, talking about what they see, and then you get to practice on graduated videos from an obvious case that any one of us without even much background would use the checklist to watch and see and write the report, and then we compare our report to an expert's report. We compare our report to an expert's report, and eventually you get to some of the more nuanced and difficult cases, again using the checklist, again writing your report, again comparing it to an expert's. And early cases, you can watch it and stop it and watch it again. Latter cases, you can't, because in the real world, you can't. You don't have time to do that. So, again, very cognitivist. You all see how that's very cognitivist. Here's Quest Garden, my colleague Bernie Dodge's work, and this is how to build web quests, where there is no right answer. Typically, it's teamwork. A case or a problem is set up. And one of my favorite examples is on Dolly the clone. I believe Dolly is British, probably long gone now. But Dolly's descendants are probably still here. So cloning. Now, you could decide to teach cloning in a behaviorist fashion. Drill, what's it called? Cards, flashcards. They get the right answers. Maybe cognitivist, where they have perspectives on when would cloning be appropriate, when wouldn't it be appropriate. You're giving them perhaps some aided performance. Quest Garden, on the other hand, said, no specific outcomes in mind. Let them learn to use each other and the web to find answers. Right? There was no specific set expectation. Constructivist. Here's another fave I have, connectivist. And these are two Canadians, Steve Downs and Stephen Siemens. And look what they're talking about. They're talking about the role of relationships, resources, and connections. What they say is we have moved, and this is so interesting, we have moved from a world of know what to a world of know, from a world of know how to a world of know who and know where. And of course, what I would say is not either or, but and. Right? If I'm developing instructional designers or I'm developing retirement specialists who serve on the phone in financial services, they need to know how, they need to know what, and they need to know where and know who. And, which means look at the strategies, different strategies. And of course, that's what's interesting about theory. I don't care about it. I don't own stock in the theories. But I'm interested in having a full palette of colors with which to paint when we build these programs. And good guidance systems so they don't get lost in the plethora of opportunities, which is another set of issues. You surely want an example. Here's an example. We don't know what to do about Somalian piracy. We don't have a single answer. And every case is so very different. So one of the things the Navy is doing is having online conversation, crowdsourcing, oh my, just to get a conversation going about what the heck are we going to do about this situation. Perfectly legitimate. Basically trying to sharpen the minds and the spirits, the know who and the know where of the people who deal with this when this comes up. So which theory drives this approach? Aspiring teachers, classroom scenarios, freeze frame, veteran teachers describe how he, she thinks about and approaches that particular discipline problem. What do you think? Behaviorism, cognitivism, constructivism, connectivism. Cognitivism, yes? Right? It's the insight into the, getting it, insight into the mind, the attributes, the heuristics of a savvy classroom teacher. Yes? This makes sense? Try this one. Sold, real estate, new sellers. During onboarding, sellers meet with peers to establish relationships. They hear from veterans about their sources with sharing in person and online. Connectivism, yes? Yes? Hello? Now, is that all you would do? No. I can see opportunities for behaviorism. I can see opportunities for cognitivism with checklists of how to convert a for sale by owner into a listed sale. Right? So they're all possible. It's stuff you can put in the quiver. Net, to me, ID basics. Theories drive our strategies. So it's not just like a habit. You know how when we teach, we do the same thing over and over again. Hello, can I get a nod? Okay. One of the great things about having a robust set of theories to think about and consider is you question your habits. We begin with the end in mind. Can I get a nod? Remember how I taught the Scarlet Letter? Don't do what I did. Data shapes our decisions. That means we actually talk to workers. We actually look at help desk data. We actually look at error data and sales data. We know classroom instruction is good, but often not sufficient. Can I get a nod? With technology extending messages and defining roles for supervisors. I mean, if we just did that, think of the effects we would have. We are systematic with output from one phase serving as input for the next. We are systematic with output from, in other words, what I wasn't with the Scarlet Letter. Getting up in the morning and trying to dance as attractively as I could in front of the classroom to keep their attention. No clue, no plan, no ends, no reason for doing one thing or the other. All right, I am telling you, I was a sinner, but I was not the only sinner. Okay? Some of you have known some sinners too. Okay. ID. Decisions is about, ID is about decisions, about how we make good decisions and where decisions come from. Yes? Which brings us to this familiar visual, ADDIE. Analyze, design, develop, implement, evaluate. Folks, I don't care if you like this visual or not. What I like about it is the arrows, the iterativeness of it, and the fact that the output from one phase serves as input for the next phase, so that I know. I was talking to a gentleman this morning, Jeff. I think I saw Jeff. Did he come in? There's Jeff back there. And he was telling me about a math program he built. And he was saying how they did this, they did that, they did the other thing, and then they actually looked at data and saw where adults were having problems with some basic math skills. And that's where they focused their mobile attention. right? They didn't try to do everything. They didn't fire hose it. They focused on the 12 or 13 or 14 areas where folks really needed better worked examples, more opportunity for practice, more opportunity for feedback. That's what instructional design is about. It's about kicking some things out of bed and welcoming others for data-driven reasons, of course. Okay, so that's instructional design basics. So what do I think is about greatness? Now, obviously, I could go on forever, but I'm trying not to. I'm trying to do the hardest thing in the world, which is stifle myself. Which, by the way, I'm not talking about mobile today, but that is my main message on mobile. Stifle yourself. She's laughing. I reviewed a whole bunch of leader development apps. There'll be an article coming out on it in CLO Media, CLO magazine. And that's what most of them didn't do. They didn't stifle themselves. They tried to do everything. Can't do everything. Got to do a few things very well with targeted messages that go to what the issue is with leader development, not blah, 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 blah. Leader development, leader is good, leader is you, or this, leader versus manager. Okay, who doesn't know that? Who can do that is the question. Okay, they see, this is first bullet, great instructional design, great leader apps. They see it is all about them, their problems, their tasks. I don't even have to look at it. Their priorities, what bugged them yesterday, what drove them out of their minds, what they're going to confront tomorrow morning. So it isn't, people often say to me, what about comprehensiveness? I said, yeah, in the book, on the shelf. When you deliver it to people, it can't feel comprehensive. It has to feel targeted. It has to feel like they get me. They get me. It's mine. Their experience is vivid and it's authentic and is chock full of, this is such a big thing, worked examples, where the little math segment on percentages or whatever the heck it was about, real, you see it and you hear the voiceover and you see the words and the numbers coming out. Oh, that's how you work on it. Oh, that's how you complete it. That's how a smart one thinks about child abuse. With opportunities to think about and do something. That's why that, at the beginning, that casino lady is so happy. Because she's doing something and she finds out if it was a good thing to do. The experience assures some success and some stretch. What's that famous Browning quote? A man's reach. That's what it said, a man's reach. That's the way it was said. A man's reach should exceed his grasp. And that's what we need to do. So we don't want them chucking off the stage because they're reaching so far. Notice I'm slightly afraid of heights. But you also don't want it completely in their wheelhouse where they're comfortable. Because then they say, ain't no value here for me. I already get it. I got it. So we're always looking for some success and then that reach just beyond, but not too much reach, because too much reach reduces what? Too much reach reduces what? Success, which reduces confidence, which reduces motivation. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that's why it's so important, because motivation, because they get to choose. You know, if I have to have you here and I'm going to take attendance at 4 o'clock every Thursday afternoon, right, and I'm going to do it, and if you're absent more than one class, your grade's down, that's one story. But the world they live in doesn't look like that world anymore. Our students, our employees, and our higher ed students, it's not their world anymore. So we need to, so that's why we need to know them so very well, so we can give them some success and give them some stretch. And that has to match their workplace and the challenges and the context. Knowing the work, the worker, and the workplace. Knowing the work, the worker, and the workplace, and being useful to them in those worlds. There are systematic choices to extend lessons, information, guidance, and advice into the field of play. And I'm really very serious about these elements. Lessons, information, guidance, and advice. That's what we do now. We used to be in charge of thrones like this, lovely places like this, and we used to be in charge of classrooms, and maybe we were in charge of what was in the front of the classrooms and the seats. But now our canvas extends to the workplace, the cubicle, the manufacturing floor, even the hotel room. The relationship between the supervisor and the employee. That is a lot more to think about, a lot more to worry about, and a lot more opportunity to be influential, which is what we're supposed to be doing. Example. Not very glamorous looking, is it? So one day I'm at an insurance company and we go out to lunch, always a favorite moment. And the guy who's driving me around, who's in charge of the project I'm doing with the insurance company, he says, let me show you something. You're going to love this. We drive into a parking lot, and the parking lot is full of crunched up cars. Different degrees of crunchiness. Just like the child abuse videos in many ways, right? The obvious, very obvious, got to get a new front quarter panel. Made that up, I don't know what they're called. All the way through to, you know, looks like it's close to a, what's it called? Total. It's been close to total. So, we go in there, and each of them has a number on them. And I said, wow. He said, I knew you'd love this. And of course, why did I love it? It's vivid, it's authentic, it's for new insurance claims adjusters. And so they've just been in classrooms, and in the classrooms they worked on pieces and parts, and they used their software to work on pieces. Now they go down and they go to station 1, station 2, station 3, and the instructors are looking, because they're feeding it into the software. The instructors are looking, getting the data from the software, and they know who's having trouble, who isn't. They can go right down into the parking lot and help them. Oh, it's wonderful. And they're doing it with the givens, with the aiding, which we have to be so interested in our business, right? How are they going to use their tablets or their computers or their smartphones? Given what, they'll be able to do what? So given what and what authentic conditions, they'll be able to do what. And of course, station, I'm making up the numbers now, 17, 18, 19, and 20 had actors there. And what do you think the actors were doing? Who were the actors playing? Drivers, owners, the people who have the crunched up cars. I think the best way to describe them would be unhappy people. Well, they're not. I guess maybe if you wanted a new car, maybe. But, so there you go. That's real. Their problems, their futures, think about and do, using the right aiding, some success and some stretch, very carefully structured. Another example, pharmaceutical. Think about it from an instructional designer perspective. Here, the instructional designer is busy working on the issue of who and what is a positive deviant. I talked about positive deviants earlier when I talked about kids who really got the scarlet letter. Not professor critics, but kids. What is it they think about and do? How are they different as a result of scarlet lettering? What do they think about? How do they think about their friends differently? How do they think about themselves differently? I'm going to be so much of a better teacher if I have a clue about that ahead of time, which I had none of. So here we're asking the question, and I do a lot of work in sales training. So we want to know the sales professionals who are doing a really good job, repeat business, size of sales, making their targets. How do they run their days? How do they think about their customers? How do they research their customers? What about business intelligence? So this is this is a nice website, positivedeviants.org or com. I can't remember which one. But it's got really good example sample questions. The definition of great sales skills, knowledge, and habits. And then, it's not our secret in the instructional design learning realm. We share it. Tell them. I can't tell you how many projects I've worked on where I had to figure out where I had to say, please, can't we share with them what we learned in the analysis? They need to know what greatness looks like. They need to know what the habits and performance and drivers are of successful performance, and they need to know what stymies success. And of course, their leadership does too, but they need to know too. You can get good performance just by vivid statements of clarity of expectations. I mean, there's a body of literature around that. We don't always have to train them. Sometimes we can just inform them in a vivid fashion with good reasons, of course. Next up, yes, classes and simulations, worked examples, selected classes online and face-to-face, and then my favorite part, an online simulation center where they get to tackle things. All right? And then they get to compare their efforts with some standards and with some real star exemplars of people who've done the work. Positive deviance, yes. Don't you like that phrase, positive deviance? People who deviate positively. I mean, when you find people who deviate positively, you know it, you've seen it yourself. I was talking to somebody the other night. His parents had been married 61 years. 61 years. I guess it was Steve Wheeler. It was I'm a little confused about what day it is. This was yesterday. Somebody said, when did you get here? And I said, I don't know. No idea. Sometime recently, but I don't know. Ask my cats. They would know. 61 years. So when you meet a couple that's been together 61 years, what do you say to them? Come on. What do you say to them? Congratulations. Then what do you say to them? What's the secret? We should do the same thing with customer service reps, retirement specialists, instructional designers. What's up with that? Both in terms of what you think about and do, and what you wrap around yourself to keep on thinking about it and doing it and keep growing. How you do that? So, to me, this is a really good sim center, assuring practices, enabling yourself to compare with experts. It's just to keep stretching. How do we... I mean, I have a gym where I go where I'm one of the younger people, and I like that. But every so often, I sign up and I work with a trainer, and I go to the other gym, the gym where all the studly guys are, because I want to compare myself. Then I feel bad, and I go back to no, it just set goals, push, never stop. And finally, on-demand support, on-demand nuggets of learning. There's a much longer conversation about those two, but basically targeted bites of advice, audio examples, checklists, online community, targeted push, and an easy pull. And that thing, that easy pull, 2 words, easy pull, not easy to do, right? Most of you are in organizations not that suffer from lack of stuff, but that suffer from too much stuff. Can I get a nod? And people can't find it. And we really have to work that issue. I have a friend who works in an organization where they won't let them produce anything until they figure out how to rationalize it and serve up more than, put in a word, up comes 20 options. Undifferentiated. That ain't going to help us. What is great about CPR training? How many people here have had CPR? Come on, let's see those hands. You don't need help raising your hand. Okay, CPR training. How many of you think that, God forbid, I fell down here, you'd be ready to just take right over? There's one. Why? Because you had it last week. You've had it lots of times. She's had refresher. Okay, you got 2 choices with that. It shouldn't be or, it should be and. If you've had CPR training, you want to have refresher training, because who the heck can remember it, right? Right? What is the problem about CPR training? The problem about CPR training is that it wasn't today. And it wasn't yesterday, it was a while ago. So you need refresher, and this is a really good online example of refresher, by the way. Go take a look at it at Articulate. And so this happens, he falls down, what are you going to do? This is what you're going to do. Take a look at the American Heart Association app. It costs money, I think maybe $3.99. But it's resident on your phone, so you don't need to be able to get into the Wi-Fi system, oh, please let me in. Right? And I heard a story about a Brazilian caught in a horrible an American caught in a Brazilian earthquake in a big fancy hotel. down, the elevator fell down, broke part of a leg, really in deep trouble, had no idea when or if he would be rescued. He happened to have the American Heart Association app. Couldn't call anybody because couldn't get any connectivity, but he had the app, and it told him things he could do to preserve his life, and he did live. So this lives. This is resident on your, and it's wonderful. Look at all the details, and pulling it all together. It has video upon video of what to do. And it even reminds you exactly where to push, how long to push. I think it's quite a wonderful example. And I encourage you to take a look at it. The other thing you can look at is if you go online, it's going to be in that CLO article, but if you go online, AED, this is a system, this resuscitation system, to me, I looked at the thing and I thought, I could never operate that. But then I watched the video of the performance of support they provide. Stunning. It's a stunning example. No, it's not for everything. It's not for leader development. You can use it for leader development. And it's not going to help with ethics, but it's got lessons for us on ops kinds of support. Heavy on learning, heavy on things to the mind, heart, and belly, heavy on things to the mind, heart, and belly, lighter on support, but lots of performance support there. Could I just take the performance support and fly the flight home? Could you? No, right? So you got to have lots built in, but then you can improve it, update it, buff it, add standards, update. This is one of my favorite stories. Anybody heard this story? Does this look familiar to anybody? This is a British tree surgeon. He could be your tree surgeon. His name is Tim. His last name is Tim, I think Leon, Timm. And he found a finch in front of his house. You can see he's got his tree surgeon gear. Here, he's a tree, look at him with those things on his ears. Tree surgeon gear. And he finds a finch knocked out cold in front of his house. But he sees the little heart is beating. And he picks up the finch and he brings the finch in the house, does a little massage on the finch. Nothing happens. He's getting upset. He wants to save the finch. And he thinks, I'm turning to my iPhone. And he turns to his iPhone and he gets the sound of the finch. Another finch, not his finch, the other finch. And he puts it next to the finch and he plays it. And the finch goes like this. Springs to life. Lets it out the window, out the door. And he goes on. And the finch goes on about his business. Have you ever heard a more touching example of performance support? Now, I'm not sure I would do it because I wouldn't know how to lift a little finch. I would think it might be a little dirty little finch. My mother told me don't touch things like that, and I've never gotten over it. But, I mean, this is an amazingly, look, there's the finch, and there's the happy guy who saved the life of a finch with his iPhone. And this, I can take her with me. She thinks I'm funny. And but this is really heavy on support, much lighter on learning. And many of the things you do have, again, those different percentages. And this is what the guy says. He's a hoot. Ha, 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 ha. I love tweeting. And look at this. What does he say at the end of the article? It says, now this has happened. This is something I can tweet about. How fun is he? I loved him. Touching minds and hearts. Several years ago, I wrote a book, and that was a big piece of the book, was what are the strategies that the literature tells us, that evidence tells us, will help us in this regard. And here they are. There's not that many of them. I think about 8 or 9 of them here. This book was written maybe 7 or 8 years ago. Find me a new one and I'll add it to the list. But basically, here you go. Reveal your sources. Say why. Show how your sources are credible. And that's why I think you need to share your analysis data and your evaluation data. Inoculate learners against what's going to happen. What's going to get in the way of their performance. Don't tell them everything is rosy, because it probably isn't rosy. Stories, problems. I heard the presentation yesterday of Etiel Dror, and I mean, this is what he's talking about. Emotions, stories, cases, problems. Of course. Show emotions and reactions, your own and, more important, other sales managers, other customer service reps, other drivers, other high school seniors. And this one, there was a really nice article in the New York Times last week about the power of self-assessment and reflection as an indicator of successful performance. And that's why cognitivism is powerful. I will admit I got a bit of an inclination towards it because it helps you think about, helps you get insight into what a smart caseworker who knows about child abuse thinks about when he or she looks at those videos, meets a child, meets a family. Customer service rep, same thing. Ah! I don't know why. It's your computer. Worked on mine. Okay. We touch minds and we touch hearts with stories and circumstances. Key thing, ring true, ring true. We make our expectations clear. The power of this, I could tell a long story about a financial services company where we thought we were going to get to build all this great e-learning. This is back in, 8 years ago in the e-learning era. I was very excited about it. But they said, to start, we're going to do an analysis, look at positive deviants, teller 1s, teller 2s, and teller 3s. Define what makes a great positive deviant, teller 1, teller 2, teller 3. We tried to write it in a way that told a story, and we did it. And we turned it in, and we said, now what do you think? Great. And they validated it, because we used their people, of course. And the guy said, we're not going to invest in e-learning because we want to sell the bank. And so we can't spend any money. I said, after I said, damn, I said, could you at least release the descriptions of what goodness looks like at the teller 1, 2, and 3 level? And he said, sure, we can. And they did. And they got noticeable jumps in performance just by being clear about the essence of goodness in a vivid way, not in a 1.1, 0.2, point A, 0.1, point. They had to tell a story. Engage your people in continuous and colorful experiences through examples, practices, reflections, guided, emphasis on guided. But that's, you got to know how much guidance. That's why we get paid the big bucks. Do we guide like the military, or do we guide? And it's variable. The answer is variable. If they're very motivated, how much they already know, it influences. How complex the material is, how nuanced, how much shades of gray, makes a difference. Their managers are engaged in it all. And the last one probably says, delivering solutions into rooms and into their lives and into wherever they do the work. That bigger canvas we now get to play in, and stub our toes around, we will. I think this is a really important visual. I'm very proud of myself because it's actually a visual as opposed to a bunch of words. So, always practice feedback worked examples, always. And to tell you what I'm going to do, push it a little. Think about compliance. I mean, there's so much to say about compliance. And it's so interesting and it's so important. I mean, isn't safety important? Isn't inclusion important? Isn't reduction of sexual harassment or, creating a positive workplace, like, it matters. I think it's important. How about hazardous chemicals? Certainly I think it's important. So if you think about these, I think it reminds you of just how rich our options are. So, practice feedback examples. I cannot imagine a program where you're not going to have some of that. Maybe that's not the heart of it, but there's going to be some of that. Then today, these are the main strategies that are dominant. Scenarios, commentaries, audio commentary on examples, checklists, coaching, vivid cases and problems ripped from the headlines of their work, aided and unaided performance. You've got to be thinking about those issues. Of course, I love those issues. I think they're really, really interesting. So what do we need to build into mind, heart, and belly? Where will we invest in those repetitions? Over time, over place. And where will we give them access to tablets and print and their phones and whatnot? And finally, culture, community, social networks, more performance support, and choice. So then we get to the issue of guidance, how much and in what forms. Because you can't just say, go feast. So I believe that instructional design is great. You just heard my rendering of instructional design. This is my rendering. It delivers solution systems. It delivers in rooms, and it delivers in the workplace, and it even delivers in hotels and trains and on some planes, but not my plane because they don't have wireless yet. What we are trying to do is to be instructional designers who are influential, which means we are instructional designers, which means we're constantly putting our finger on their pulse. We're interested in who they are, where they work, what they confront, why they succeed and why they don't. What will you do tomorrow? You just heard me natter on for 55 minutes. Will you do something different tomorrow? Anything. So this is shameless promotion. It's going to end real fast. These are my books. I have no idea if they're here at the conference. I told them about them. I don't know. Anybody see them at the conference somewhere? Is Wiley here? Pfeiffer? Could be if they are. This is a book on planning. This is a book on job aids and performance support. This is a book called Beyond the Podium. Haha, here we are at the podium. These are some more resources, many free. More resources because I can't control myself. This is to show you that I'm a modern, thoroughly modern Millie. Although I guess now it's getting a little less modern. I thought about taking it out because it didn't feel quite as modern as it did last year. So you can follow me on Twitter here, @Rossett, and you could email me here at AllisonRossett.com. I have all kinds of blog postings on things from about instructional design, needs analysis, mobile, schmobile, the San Diego Padres and why don't they win, things like that. And I think that might be the end of, I think this is the last one. It is. Yay. There you go. I think I've got 3 minutes, and I'm happy to take questions. What are you going to do tomorrow? If you don't ask me a question, I'm going to ask you a question, and I will point at someone in the audience. Nobody wants to ask me a question. Just please don't ask me why I'm not. Don't ask me about my theoretical religion, because I don't care.
Can
no
I ask
questions?
one?
Does that mean I was boring? Was it boring? It wasn't boring. It was clear. Really? Thank you. What most important to me would be useful, but number 2 would be clear. Seriously. Unfancy. The vest is fancy.
Chap right at the back,
Sir,
waving his
Jeff.
hand. Just a moment, a microphone's coming.
So, my question is, if so much of success, if so much of the way you structure the learning or think about the training is based on real kind of tangible, achievable successes for the learner at the end, how far in advance can you look at that? I mean, is there a way of evaluating what you did now by coming back in 5 years' time and seeing what the person is doing in 5 years? You know, have they progressed faster, or have they learned new skills that didn't exist before? I mean, how far in advance can we look when we're looking backwards at effectiveness?
I think if you're talking about topics like literacy, numeracy, critical thinking, you could probably use words like 4 or 5 years. But I think if you're talking about Qualcomm's products, he works at Qualcomm, I think you're probably talking about 5 minutes or 3 months. But what that says to me is that we need, I'll actually tell a story of a technology company, not Qualcomm. And I was doing a needs analysis workshop there. We had about 20 people in it. And the last person to introduce himself, nobody knew this guy. I certainly knew none of those folks. He said, my name is blah, 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 and I'm an engineer. And I've been tasked with doing the engineering needs assessment. And he said, I came to this class because I've been doing it now for 18 months, and they're starting to withdraw their support from my effort. Engineering needs assessment he's looking for the right answer. There is no right answer. We have to constantly be rolling up data. What are people thinking about? What's keeping people up at night? What are some amazing successes? Let's dig deep down into those successes, figure out how we can get more of those successes. Let's study the failures. And I think you have to be not doing an 18-month long needs assessment. You need to be constantly assessing, constantly capturing data. Use the social networks. You can get data just by reading what's naturally going on in the conversations on Twitter and Yammer and whatever. So I don't know if that answered it, but forget 5 years. Except for things like critical thinking. Maybe, I'm not so sure leadership changes. The challenges change, but leaderlinesshood, that doesn't change. He's laughing at my English. He thinks I need to go back to school. I did study British literature. That was my major. So you can tell why my English is so fractured. Boy, it sure is fun to be here, though, when you were an English major. It's incredible. Yes, sir?
You spoke about compliance and learning, and you've given some clear ideas how to improve. But the evil twin that compliance training has here, at least, is the compliance test.
Oh.
Usually follows it 3 minutes afterwards.
Good idea.
What do you have to say about that?
Do you think anybody cares what I have to say about that? Would that they did. I'm actually doing a panel at a conference in April in Chicago where we've got 3 CLOs talking about compliance and their tortures with compliance. I mean, in the U.S., they're like hell. They're going to be hauling people in. It's not the test. They're digging into the weeds. Hello? You know what I mean? They're digging into the weeds? How did you present the information? How did you provide the examples? How many practices? I mean, they're digging into the weeds. Of course, the question is, do they have the right tools to dig into the weeds? I mean, my problem with compliance isn't a test. I mean, oh God, I can remember nursing. These nursing folks, they have to take these tests every so often to rekindle their nursing licenses. It's crazy. They let them use, so they do open book tests. And then you look at the questions, and the questions aren't real. They're not important. You know, so my problem with the test is it the right items on the test? Are they authentic? Is it useful? Is it thoughtful? Is it reflective? And when they can use the materials, is that appropriate? Could they, in the real world, use aided performance? I have no wisdom on this. In California, our number 1 compliance topic is sexual harassment. I don't know why, other than it's a political thing. And they demand, I forget how many hours. Anybody know? I think it's 30 hours. 30 hours? Is that even possible? 30 hours? It's just crazy. Don't tweet that I said 30 hours, because maybe it's only 15 hours. But doesn't it really depend on who you are and how you perform, and how do you turn that into a positive work environment? And how do you set some goals for yourself and the people around you? I saw a wonderful example of compliance training once, and it was sexual harassment. And it was very cognitivist. And what it did was say, if you find yourself in a situation where you think you've seen sexual harassment, here's a checklist to use to ask yourself, have I seen it? Then they had one for a checklist for somebody who you think has been sexually harassing, and it's written from a different perspective. And then they had one for managers and supervisors to help them talk about it with the harasser, with the observer, and then, of course, the quote-unquote victim. So they basically took it from the different perspectives and tried to get a little more conversation and a little more thoughtfulness. A little more, isn't that what compliance is about? It's about being more thoughtful about ethics, for example. Good scenarios will help you be more thoughtful. And they're going to take me and they're going to pull me off. They're going to throw me out.
Indeed so.
Did you hear what he said? Indeed
I'm afraid
so. We are.
I'm the killjoy who has to bring this marvellous conversation to an end, so I'm sorry about that. But I'm sure Alison will be hanging around a little bit for a couple of minutes afterwards.
I'm going down to do a session, I think. So.
Round of applause, please. Yes. Thank you very much.